Hello guys, so here is a very short self-love session today. I've actually come away to this beautiful little medieval town called Evora, and it's in the very hot wine-grown region of Alentejo, which is in Portugal. I came for the wine, but I mainly came because there's this fantastic chapel which is basically covered in bones. And anybody that knows me knows that I've got a little bit of a gothic side. I have got this strange fixation with bones and things like that. Little bits of bones. I like bones and skulls. Strange, but there you go. Anyway, so this little chapel is covered from head to toe in patterns of bones and skulls of people who've died in this area of Evora. So I'm really excited to see it. I'll take some pictures and I'll show you it. Anybody who's into some printed textiles or textiles of any sort, repeat pattern, you'll probably like this bone chapel because it looks really beautiful. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to come here to Evora and take a little nosy. So I thought I would actually pop by anyway from Evora to do this self-love sessions, because the actual bones themselves obviously reminded me of death, and I thought I would do the self-love session on that subject. Now it sounds like a really deep, weird subject, and this is where the gothic side's obviously coming out, surrounding self-love, right? But for me, it's been one of the most profound subjects, one of the greatest teachings that I practice on a daily basis to help me come back to loving myself to the core. And I'm going to get into a couple of reasons why. I'm not going to be here for long today because there's bones to see, right? And I need to get to that bone chapel. But I just wanted to pop by to give a couple of little teachings that have really helped me in my life, and still do help me in my life to come back to that deep sense of self-love. So it made me reflect on death in itself, and I tend to come back to this on a regular basis because death is something that nobody likes to talk about. It's something that we really shy away from talking about. Even the word is a really sort of sore subject because the ego doesn't like the thought of being nothing. It doesn't like the thought of being nothing. It wants to be things, doesn't it, the ego? It wants to have an identity. It wants to have an I. It wants to have an attachment to all of our worldly belongings and all of our worldly things. And the thought of being nothing, the thought of being empty, is really quite challenging for the ego to comprehend. Now this for me has been one of the greatest meditations that I've done in my life, which I do regularly, is the meditation on death. Actually understanding that empty space, understanding the infinite, understanding zero, understanding the nothingness of things. And this might sound like a really deep subject for a Saturday, but someone's got to do it, right? So it's going to be me today. When you can come to that sense of emptiness, when you can come to that sense of zero, instead of thinking that we always have to move through life through the need and want of everything the ego wants to attach itself to, then this feeling of just being nothing and emptiness is a really powerful tool to be able to bring you back to that sense of self-love. Because what it does is it makes us feel already whole, as well as feeling like we don't actually own anything here. And it's the owning and the possession and the need to keep our life and protect it from everything, from the passing moment, to protect ourselves from going with the flow, to protect ourselves from the fact that things are always changing, to protect ourselves from the need to stay put. And we do this, don't we? We do this by collecting things. So we collect possessions because it sort of glues us to life. We collect people around us because, again, it glues us to life. We collect these images of ourselves, these things that we think we are in the egoic mind, to glue us, to anchor us to life. Can we please stay here? And when we form these attachments to staying put, it really stops us from being able to go with the flow of life, the constant change, the constant ebb and flow of life. And it makes us feel like we are part of the material world in a really attached way. And whenever we feel like we are only part of the material world, this physical world that we live in this very attached way, we start to become really attached to our own identity. We start to become really attached to the way in which people view us. We start to become really attached to not ever wanting something to change and move forward. So it's like, that's mine. These are my sunglasses. You can't have them, my precious. This is my body. God forbid it changes and ages and starts to deteriorate and turn into bones at some point. I'm just having a laugh, right? We get very attached to youth. We get very attached to our looks. We get very attached to our physical body. We get very attached to all of our things that we've collected in a very, very sentimental way. We get very attached to people. And in essence, we're getting very, very attached to life itself. And this attachment to life itself, it's a great thing, right? Because we love life. We love life and we don't want it to end because it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. But this attachment, this need to keep things exactly how they are, preserve things exactly how they are, is one of the reasons why we really struggle with loving ourselves, because we tend to view ourselves as those things. So our body starts to age and it's like, I'm not good enough anymore because I'm aging and I'm losing my life somewhere. And how can I preserve that? How can I preserve that life? How can I preserve that thing that I've attached myself to? If you attach yourself to your looks and you attach yourself to your body, then whenever you start to move through life and change daily as you do, because you grow older and you're moving towards the word that I'm not going to say again. But if you can let that go and you can let that flow and you can meditate on zero and you can meditate on the infinity of things instead of feeling like you always have to be this one person that you've got in mind. And this is one of the most greatest teachings of self-love that I've ever come across in my life. Now, it's quite a strong teaching, and there's a lot of different things that you sort of need to sort of move towards to come to that point where it's not an attachment anymore. It doesn't feel like it's hurting you so much to let go of parts of yourself that you need to let go of, because the holding on and the grasping of things is the point that creates a lack of self-love. So we age and then we don't like ourselves anymore. You know, we have to do things to our faces and do things to our bodies to make us feel preserved in a one moment in time. And I think there's something extremely beautiful and extremely endearing about wrinkles and aging and changing and wisdom. I think it's one of the most beautiful things in life, and we're not expressing it. We're not allowing ourselves to move through these different stages. We're just trying to preserve one stage, and this is an attachment. And when we get this attachment, the attachment makes us feel like we are not good enough at any stage that we're at. And so one of the greatest teachings for me is the teaching of non-attachment. And in yogic teachings, we call this aparigraha. And aparigraha is, for me, something that I teach to my students. It's also something that I learn and study and practice on a very, very regular, moment by moment process. When I'm walking down the street, I have to come back to that awareness that things change, that I change, that people change, that we lose things and we move forward, and it's the ebb and flow of life. And when we can start to meditate on that, notion of death and the notion of flow and the notion that things change and things are not stable, they're not static, things are continuously in flux, nature is continuously in flux. When we can come to that point, that is a point where we have the ability to let go of things that we claw into. Now, whether it's possessions, actual things, even money, our physical body, our looks, people, situations, when we can let go of those things, we come to a point of acceptance. We come to a point of acceptance of life, and we realise that we're greater. We're much greater than our looks. We're much greater than our money. We're much greater than our possessions. We're much greater than that one stage in life that we're hanging on to. We're everything, but we're also nothing. We're also zero. And one of the most powerful meditations that I've done in my life, and I do this very, very regularly, is the Kundalini meditation on zero. Now, people don't like to be zero. We want to be everything, but we are everything, but we're not the everything that we think we are. We're not this collection of ideas in the ego. We're not this collection of possessions that we hold to stop us from moving forward. We're not this collection of ideas we hold about our physical body. Yeah, because it's the ego that's formed those attachments, but we are still everything. We are the flow of life with the universe in ecstatic motion. We are everything, but we're also nothing. So a really powerful tool that I want to tell you about is this meditation on zero. The meditation on zero in Kundalini Yoga is sitting in, holding space for yourself, sitting in meditation, sitting with a nice tall spine and meditating on the word zero. I am zero. I am zero. I am zero. Now it sounds like, for anybody who might feel this is a really deep teaching, it sounds like something that the ego doesn't like to hear, because the ego wants to be everything. It wants to be loved, it wants to be adored, it wants to be seen as the most spectacular. It wants its life to be seen as the most spectacular. It wants its identity to be seen as the most spectacular. And then when we meditate on zero, we aren't the most spectacular. We're just poof, nothing. Right, but this is such a powerful, powerful, powerful way to bring you back to that sense that, why am I worrying so much about what Sally Smith, next door neighbour, thinks about me? Why am I worrying so much about my bank balance? Because it doesn't come to the grave with you, right? Why am I worrying so much about what John Smith, who's Sally Smith's cousin, thinks about the way in which I live my life? Why am I worrying so much about getting these wrinkles and these changeabilities in my face that make me this unique, fantastic person who's lived this life of wisdom and joy, and I'm moving through it? What a gift. Why do I have to hold on to that space in my life, that attached point in my life where I was this person, this young person? Why can't I now be that person? There's beauty in that process, and we tend to forget it. And when we can meditate on zero, we start to eventually, if you meditate on zero, I am nothing, I am empty. Eventually we come to this space where we are extremely radiant and extremely plugged into the universe and extremely accepting of the flow of life. And this is the teaching of aparigraha. This is the teaching of non-attachment. And this is probably, for me, one of the most greatest teachings that has allowed me to come back to that state of self-acceptance, because it makes me realise how big and how small I am, but none of it's got anything to do with the ego. None of it's got anything to do with possessions, looks, the way in which I'm living my life, how much money I've got in my bank, what people think about me. It's got nothing to do with those things. The greatness of the human has got nothing to do with any of those things. And it is important to come back to that empty space. The empty space has got so many answers. It's got so much wholeness. It's got so much radiance. And that's basically what I wanted to talk to you today about. Now, this is something that I practice continuously, because aparigraha, non-attachment, has got a lot to do with your own mind as well. It's got a lot to do with thoughts. When you can start to come back to that empty space, I am zero, I am the universe, I am everything, but I'm also nothing. It's a really beautiful way of being able to let things go, let something somebody said about you go, let go of this stupid social and ideal beauty phenomena that we've got going on in this ridiculous material world, thinking that beauty isn't everything. We think it's just something. And when you can start to notice that wholeness that's within you already, then you'll start to believe in your own beauty again. And this is a great teaching. So it can also come with the thoughts. I daily on a daily, because you have to keep remembering it, right? You don't just suddenly get it and then, wow, suddenly now I'm this bloody enlightened person who is walking around floating and everything's zero. It just doesn't work like that, right? It would be really unhelpful as well if it did work like that, because you wouldn't feel this lovely grounded notion of being part of this physical world. It wouldn't be like that. Instead, you'd be floating off into a different dimension, and that's not what life's about. Life's about experiencing this this physical world, right, which is beautiful and amazing. But yeah, the main teaching I wanted to get across today was this teaching of coming back to this meditation of zero. I am zero. I am moving through life already whole, already big. I'm bigger than my ego. I'm also smaller than my ego. Now, it's a weird thing to understand, but that's the way it is. If you can come to that meditation, I'm going to actually attach it as a little meditation that you can look up as well. I'm going to give you the instructions, but it's a simple meditation. It's meditating on I am zero, but I'll give you the instructions in the description of this video. So yeah, I'm just popping by to talk about that today, basically. Me blurbing along about the fact that we're all zero and talking about death, and actually meditating on death can actually make you live a much more wholesome life. This has been one of my most powerful, influential teachings that I've ever come across in my life, and it takes some time to get into it, but if you can start to bring it into your daily life, it'll start to allow you to feel much more accepting of yourself, and bring yourself some self-love from the core, not from here, into the core. And I'll leave you with that little quote, Ram Dass quote: there's nothing to fear about death. It's like taking off a tight shoe. So yeah, integrating death with life. Have a great day. Peace.